Hello, Sapiens Virtual Summit. I'm Jeremy Baggish, Account Manager at Sapiens Decision, and with me today is Tim Lenahan, Director of New Product Technology and Solutions at Allstate Insurance Company. We're going to talk about achieving business agility in an industry under transformation. As we all know, the insurance company is under quite a bit of change, being disrupted at all aspects. Tim today is going to talk about one aspect that they are employing at Allstate to deal with this transformation. Greetings, Tim.
Hey, Jeremy, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. So, at Allstate, I understand you're employing decision modeling as one effort as part of your change that you're doing.
You know what, Jeremy, we are, and I'll be tying into that, but I think it's probably worth saying is I don't think it's unique to the insurance industry. It's certainly not unique to Allstate, but technology has obviously been exploding for years, and it's come to the point that customers expect more. And with their expectation come the need to iterate and turn around products far faster. And again, I think it's absolutely true in any industry. So what you're going to see me talk about is so how do we do that? How do we get to that place that we can create products and iterate on them far faster? As this slide is showing, one way we've gone down the path of is to say that traditionally insurance products have thousands and thousands of business rules, and those business rules are embedded inside of applications with workflow. So you can think of as virtually, it's not really an insurance industry, but all software is basically saying that I've got workflow and orchestration wrapped around decisions. So our goal here is to pull all decisions out of an app. In essence, separating out the orchestration workflow from the decisions themselves.
And what are some examples of decisions?
You know, Jeremy, I think when we first went down this path, we were looking at the decisions that we were going after were the decisions core to an insurance product itself. So why would I give you this discount? How am I going to look at your claims history and make evaluations over that? If you bought this product and that product, what might I do differently? And I think what we're learning is that there's nothing inherent about how decision modeling with the way it works that ties it to a product decision. It really is equally capable of a good way to manage any decision, not just product decisions. So no real restrictions. In the next piece that we looked at was that there's a big move, I think, in our industry as a whole that some decisions just are better suited as AI or machine learning decisions. I think it's taken obviously a huge hold in many industries, and we think that we're in a great position that once we've externalized the decisions from the app itself, whether or not a particular decision is well suited as a declarative decision in a decision model, whether it's very well suited for an AI or machine learning model, or whether or not it's suited for something that's an interaction between a decision model and it doesn't matter, right? So from the app's perspective, it's just looking at it as an external decision at that point. So the app doesn't necessarily care which technology is used or which methodology or philosophy is used to derive the decision. It's external to the app. So it's a lot of flexibility for both what we're standing up now and we believe for where we go in the future if we want to change the technology that we're using to make any individual decision.
Wow, so you've really taken your decisions by taking them out of the application. You're able to manage them as independent assets, and it doesn't matter what the implementing technology for those decisions is.
Absolutely. And not only do we get the flexibility, but we're going to see in a couple slides here that we're going to talk about what else that gives us. And so this slide was really just a way to tie together those first couple to where, we're started out by everybody wants to be faster, cheaper, with better quality of the software that they're standing up. And decision is not the silver bullet that is the answer to all problems. It's just one avenue out of many to get those three pieces. So we go from wanting to be faster and cheaper with better quality. We've gone to separating our decisions. We move down that we've got the flexibility. And then so really the focus of this conversation is then for the declarative rules that we have by putting them inside of Sapiens Decision, what that gives us and how that works. So in this next slide, it's really showing by, okay, now that we've got individual business decisions, they start off in the essence as a sub-decision. There's a more technical name, but for this speak, I'll just leave it as your generic reference as a sub-decision, something like chargeable incidents. So you've been involved in a big accident. Well, was that accident, was it your fault? Was it 50% your fault? It was 0% your fault, etc. Plays into many overall decisions in an insurance company. In this example, it's saying that that same chargeable incident set of business rules is coming into play in an underwriting decision, a claims decision, and a discount decision. Where historically this may have ended up being in three different applications and three different technologies, it was very difficult to keep that synchronized. Now, because these are treated as separate assets in the essence that you can point to, it's extremely easy to get that reuse across disciplines or even within the same product itself. So even say within underwriting, there may be three different places I need to know the chargeable incident. So that reuse piece is absolutely a huge piece to what we're trying to get out of this.
And Tim, how much reuse are you getting?
Jeremy, it's a question I get asked all the time, and sometimes I hesitate in trying giving any number because it sort of depends on how you do the math. I'll say that we're extremely excited that we're getting tremendous reuse. There are places that if you did the math, it says, well, I'm like the same decision was used in like this many places, and I'm getting like 70% of my decisions already there, and I'm reusing them from something. So sometimes it's how you do the math, but I'll say we're certainly couldn't be happier with the ease at which we can get reuse. So I don't know that the number is the important thing. It's the ability to be able to reuse something as a reusable asset than it is the actual number of times. Because if three different states want to use three different rules, they're going to use three different rules. Maybe I can't stop that. But if the three different states want to use the same rule and the separate asset allows me to do that, that's the thing that we really think is the big benefit.
So I know you're reluctant to put, or it's challenging to put a percentage on it, but are you surprised at all by the amount?
When we look at the reusability factor, it can get a little complex in terms of if you looked at the sub decisions here about like chargeable incidents. So the underwriting decision in this picture and the claims decision are completely different decisions, but they're both reusing the rules that are sitting behind the chargeable incidents business rules. And so that's the reusability that for me is exciting to see. And I think that we get a big benefit from.
Thanks.
This next slide probably is the piece that hits the hardest on what we're doing and what we're getting out of it. So across the top of the slide is historically what we had done previous, and I think all companies had a process, whatever your SDLC was, by which you had a business person that would come up with the business rules. They would document the business rules, and it would go through a series of transformations until it ultimately got to a coder, a developer. And that developer would make an interpretation and build the software to manage those business rules. So even if you look in the adoption of agile technologies, there still is a premise that a business person is actually establishing what the business rules should be, and then you've got a developer who's actually, in the essence, writing what the business rule would be in that business rule would be in the code of choice, technology of choice. And so what you're seeing here along the bottom is a completely new role, and you have to view it as a completely new role. It's not, hey, do I take a business person and teach them coding? Do I take a coder and teach them how to be a business person? It's really trying to collapse the two worlds to say that when you're making up your mind as a business about how you want this rule to work, the perfect scenario is that the individual that's establishing what the rule should be is actually maintaining the rule themselves. So there's really two pieces to that. One of them is visibility to the rules. So independent if I'm the individual who actually built the original rule. So I've come along and I'm looking at a business rule 3 years later. In our previously legacy world, I had no choice but to pick up the phone, call a developer and say, hey, could you wade through that COBOL code or that Java code and tell me what the rule is? Because independent of what I put in a Word document, I don't know what's really executing. So I had to rely on the developer to give me that visibility. Now, with the direct visibility of the business being able to go into the decision tool and say, I can actually look at what the rule is that you eliminate that interpretation from a developer. And then the second half of that is the direct management of the rules themselves. So if I'm trying to make a change, and not only can I see what's there now, which is obviously very important, when I'm changing it, it's in the same format, it's in the same tool to make the change, then it is the visibility that I'm looking at the rules. So it's a tremendous benefit.
And where are you finding this new role? How are you sourcing it?
Jeremy, it's I don't think there's one easy answer. At least if there is, we certainly haven't found it. But we're looking at multiple avenues. We brought in new college hires. We brought some people from the business over. We took some technologists, people who were previously technologists, and brought them over. So it the biggest piece to look at it is it's not trying to fit it into the paradigm of what your roles that you have now. I mean, it is a new role and it's a new discipline. There is a test that we have that we've given to all candidates, and it's not the only means that we make decisions, but it's a useful tool to give us some insight into whether or not the individual has propensity to be successful at what decision modeling actually does. So I think, as the industry, I believe that this is catching on more and more, and I believe that you'll start seeing universities start looking at decisions of assets differently, and the skill will be a little bit easier to attain. Right now, it's a little bit of actually having to develop the skill in-house to a degree by pulling from different avenues.
And how have you ramped them up to this new activity?
So we're sort of trying to stay ahead of the curve. That it takes a while. It's not like you come in on Monday and like on by Friday. There's a lot of process by which you manage decisions. You can use this technology and really like make your decisions convoluted and difficult to get reuse out of them. So you have to put a lot of thought and planning into the way you do that, and that takes some experience. What we originally did in the outset is we took one of our existing products and said, hey, let's take a team and let's go have them extract every business rule there is about this existing known product and put it into decision models. And it was a great learning experience because it wasn't like an academic exercise about university students attending a class. It was really our business rules. Our business people were involved, and it allowed us to sort of build that skill in house before we actually had to develop the rules themselves for the new products that we're constructing.
And what has surprised you about this process? What didn't you see coming?
Interesting question. I guess maybe the one thing that surprised me a little bit is because I've been in technology for a long time, and this was being born in a technology space. We sort of looked at it almost like the top in the slide, to where as technologists we were giving an answer or a solution to business people on how to do something. Uh, and I think the thing that surprised me was it was senior business leaders that really came along and they sort of grasped that, well, hold on a second, this is giving them the ability to own and manage their own business rules. And so it stopped becoming us trying to sell them on, hey, this is something we'd like to get you on board with, and this is something we would like to do for you. And it really started becoming more of a, hey, they're driving it. So this is, hey, these are our business roles, and we can have these skills. We can own, we can manage, we have visibility, etc. So I think that's the thing that surprised me a little bit. And it wasn't just at the lower levels of the people doing the work. It was more about the senior levels of the company having some insight into, hey, this is a great way to manage and own our business roles. So they're becoming probably the bigger drivers in a way than those of us who started it in the first place. So that's I don't know if I saw that one coming.
Wow. And is this methodology, are you applying it only to new apps that you're building, or is this same approach valid for legacy systems?
I think when it comes to how you adopt it and you embed it, uh, you want to say that, like, for right now, that we're using this to build new products and new processes. But then you inevitably you're going to find that, well, this overlaps, that I may have had an identical decision that is already being made inside my legacy system, sitting in COBOL somewhere. So the vision would be is that if the decision's already being made, buried somewhere in code and COBOL somewhere, and then now we've got this decision that's being stood up inside the Sapiens tool and being made able that way. Obviously, our long-term strategy would be is you'd like to see those get married together, right? So reuse just doesn't have to be that I've created this new decision as an asset and others can come along and leverage it. But how can I also retrofit that into existing systems? And I think for us over time, we'll be looking to evaluate, is this legacy app something that's going to be around here a long time and it's worth retrofitting? Is this something that we were thinking we are going to replace anyways? In which case that we wouldn't. But the real goal here is to say is that this is an awesome way to manage business decisions as assets, and anywhere that we can embed that is important. And I think the same thing could probably be stated for vetted products as well. So we'll continue to be buying vended solutions to do certain things in our business, and any way that we have those vendor solutions leverage these decisions as well, as many vendors now understand that they need to be able to reference external sources for decisions. I think that the same answer will stand there as well. Anywhere we can get reuse and have a consistent way that we're managing the business decisions, the better.
So if you'll allow me to draw a conclusion and tell me if this is valid or not, but would you say that there's still value for other companies who aren't necessarily changing everything or building new systems to leverage this approach for their existing infrastructure?
I think I would. I guess sometimes when I looked at my own journey, like I said, 4 years ago when we were first bringing it in, and what I saw then and what I see now, I really don't think that there's anything tying this to one's approach. Um, you know, they're easy to say if you were not going through some kind of transformation, you were not trying to build new products, and all you were trying to do is bring better clarity to how you manage existing business decisions. I think that you would see just as much value in that space as what we're doing. So I don't think it's really restricted to one. Hey, if you're under like a major business transformation, this is when you would take this move. I think that's the piece that I guess I personally regret that I didn't better understand 4 or 5 years ago. Is that this is just a better way to manage business decisions and rules as assets, period, independent of where it's going or for what purpose.
Wow. That sounds exciting. And speaking of excitement, what are you most excited about over the next 6 months?
I think for me, I've been in IT now for about 40 years, so I've been doing this a long, long time, and uh, you know, there's never silver bullets, right? There just aren't. But once in a while, at least I'll say in my 40 years, I've seen a technique or a technology that comes along that fundamentally can actually be a game changer in how something's done. They're few and far between. I believe this is one of those. So if I look down, whether it's 6, 12, 18, 24 months down the road, I look forward to the day that we can do what we should be doing, and is focusing on figuring out what the business rules should be, and not as much effort and focus on how to get them in place. And I think that's going to do that for us. So I think that's the part that excites me. Is I look forward to waking up 2 years from now and say, oh, this is awesome. Is that we brought the benefits that we were hoping to, with speed to market, cost reductions, etc. And this was a key player in allowing us to live into that.
Wow. Well, thanks, Tim. What we'd like to do now is end the recorded part of the presentation and open it up to the audience for more questions.